Hello, this is Charlie Newton, and this is Splash. I'm your teaching artist for today. Splash is a free art school for everybody, kids from 3 to 93. I hope that you're having an awesome day today, and if you like to draw, if you like art, your day is about to get better. For the last few weeks, we've been talking about portraiture, and I want to just give you some tips on portraiture, and we're going to actually draw a portrait today using these tips. So if you're ready, I am too. Let's get started. Grab your H pencil. I'm using a 4H pencil, and I'll probably do some shading today as well. The first thing I want you to notice with the photograph is that in this photograph of this older lady, her face is slightly tilted. I'm going to tilt my portrait slightly, but not much. I actually don't want my portrait to tilt much. And her left shoulder is forward. So if you look at my body, I'll show you what's happening. This is a subtle position, anatomical position that will throw a lot of experienced artists, including myself. So now we're dealing with anatomy. So remember, whenever you get a portrait from a magazine, that model has been posed in weird positions. So if you're doing a portrait of a famous person, or one of your favorite musicians or something like that, that person has been posed in an awkward position, but it doesn't show up awkward on the photograph. So in the portrait we're going to do, this lady's left shoulder is forward and her face is turned back like this. That's a really awkward position. And the photographer probably said, tilt more. She may have been more like this. And having posed for photography before, I know exactly what that feels like. It's very awkward. So I want my portrait to not look so, I want my portrait to just be a little bit straighter, the head. I'm going to tilt it slightly, but I don't want to tilt it much for our purposes, because I want to show you some things to look for in order to capture the portrait. Okay. So this is just a quick and dirty way to do portraits. So the first thing I look at is the shape of the face. And for everybody, for each individual artist, something's going to capture you first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some sketches. So when I look at her face, the first thing I do, I take the time to say, okay, what strikes me about this portrait? Her eyes, I think she has beautiful eyes. Her face reminds me sort of like of an acorn. And I like her smile. It's very difficult to do teeth and make it look okay. So if you're doing a portrait of your friend, it's going to be easier for the mouth to be closed. So to say the tilt on this picture is kind of like this, but I don't want mine to be that tilted. So things I'm going to be looking at is in this acorn shape. Let me sketch this acorn shape. I'll use my 4B to sketch it. Now I'll use the 6B so you can see it easier. This is what I meant when I said her face is like an acorn. This is the shape that I'm seeing here. So that's what strikes me about this portrait. And right here, along these lines would be her eyes. And remember, the eyes are usually one eye distance apart. Then her nose. Then her mouth. It's very difficult to do a smile too, so you may have to exaggerate. If you're drawing from realism, you may have to exaggerate a little bit. But it's easier, like this sketch here, I just did a sketch, a quick sketch, and it's easier to sketch it first and then to make changes. So I suggest maybe that you sketch the face first and then go back in for the details. For instance, if I decide the line's going to be here for her cheek, and this line's going to be maybe around in here. Okay, so what I want you to pay close attention to is wherever the eyeballs are, you can line up the corner of the mouth, and the corner of her mouth seems to be equal to the center of her eyeball on my left and her right. And on this side, on my right and her left, the corner of her mouth lines up with the outer edge of that eye, right here. So on her right side, or my left side, is directly in the center of the eyeball. The nose, to me, is the hardest thing to place. I want to find out, I have some secrets that I'm doing to try to find out where this nose is, and that's only for students that are more advanced, okay? And people are trying to make a living at portraiture. And I haven't done portraiture in a while, so I'm making, if I start drawing on this, I'm gonna just keep making changes, but line up everything. So the corner of her nose, one side of her nose lines up with the outer edge of this eye, her left eye, and the other nose, the other nostril lines up with the inside of her eyeball. So these are things, these areas is what we want to take stock of. You also, if you want to, you can measure her top lip, the edge of her top lip to the edge of her bottom lip, and then try to find something on her face that matches that measurement. And I have, so make the corner of her eye to here is about the distance. And let's say the eye is correct. So about this distance here. So I'll take that measurement. I'm using my finger to know where it is. And so if this is the top of her lip, then her bottom, the bottom of it would be right there. So that way you can get this width. So those are the basic things, and her ears seem to be falling kind of low. Her left ear kind of lines up with her top eyelash as far as the crease right here, and her right ear lines up a little higher, about right in here. Okay, and the bottom of her ear, you can't really see it, but it sort of lines up just above her top lip, and on her left side is around the same place. It's kind of like this. So you can see, as you can see, I'm measuring everything, and then you always want to give her enough head, enough forehead space. And like I tell kids, look at the picture or your model more than you do your page. So those are the measurements I really want you to take stock of. So now I'm going to try to do her portrait. And remember to keep your paper clean. So one way to do that, you can get a paper towel. I think I'll use a paper towel today, or you can get another sheet of paper to rest your hand on if you need to. So I'm using my 2H pencil. So I'm more interested in her head more than her shoulders. So now I'm trying to decide where do I want to place the eyes. So this line would be the center of her face that I just sketched. And I'm telling you, I may need to make changes. So that's why I'm using the hard lead pencil. But when I sketched her eyes, now I've just sketched her entire face. So now I'm just doing this my way. I really want the shape of her eyes to be correct. So the top eyelash, it bends a little bit. It's not perfectly oval. So I'm just sketching. I'm thinking about the space between the eyeball and the whites of the eyes. I'm thinking about the eye pupil. So I'm still in sketch mode, even though I'm not doing the whole head at the same time. And I'm looking at her eyelid. I'm still in sketch mode. So for me, what I'm doing, I'm using contour drawing and gesture at the same time. But I'm really doing a contour. Sort of like a detailed contour. Now once I get one eye, if I like that eye, now I can measure the width of that eye. And it is one eye distance. So I'm trying to decide where is the corner of her eye here. It's going to be right here. Now, if I was drawing her live, I wouldn't have this tilt because it just presents so many problems. Or I might have the tilt, who knows. Now I want the height of the eye to be the same too. Basically the same. I can draw a line straight across and see if that works. There are other ways to measure this than what I'm doing, but I'm not that concerned for my purposes. Another way is to make tick marks. So this would be the width, I think from here to there. See if it's close. It's pretty close. Let's see. Okay, I started this too close. So if you're painting a portrait, and our kids are working on paintings now, I tell them this is where you take the time with the initial sketch. So this should start here. So I'm going to take this little corner off so I don't get confused. I think I used the wrong eraser. also you can measure the height the same way. Now, I want splash students to not smudge your paper or your drawing. Don't smear your drawing to shade it. I want you to learn how to shade by using lines, and later on you can use a stump to shade. But you don't want to use the stump until you can shade it with your with lines. We don't want any shortcuts in drawing. It takes some time to learn how to draw, so you don't want shortcuts. Now, I've said this before. Now, I used to make my living doing portraits, but that's been some years back. And so it takes me, I would have to draw maybe 5 portraits in one sitting. It takes about 3 hours, 3 to 5 hours for me to draw a portrait correctly in order to get back in, to get my eyes back to where they need to be. I couldn't just draw one portrait today, one tomorrow, and one the next day and get back to where I want to be. I would have to do, really it probably would take me 3 portraits, but 3 to 5 portraits, I'm thinking maybe more, depending on how long it's been since I've done portraits. Because drawing a face is different than drawing a portrait. The portrait has to look like the person. And so it's portrait painting or drawing is very difficult. And it actually takes a little bit of special training. And some people have they have really good eyes, and they can get a likeness, but then you want training. Okay, once you get the likeness, you know, how do you make it a nice work of art? You know, she has some real small tear ducts under her eyes, a couple of lines in the corner of her eyes. I'm not going to accentuate that much. We already decided that the corner of her nostril is about right there, the corner of her left nostril is about here. I'm measuring for the length of her nose. What I do is just find another place on her face that's going to be around in there somewhere. That's similar in measurement. And for our purposes, I just want it to be close. Now, at this stage of any drawing or painting, you're not thinking perfection. You're thinking, okay, you're just trying to get something down that you can model or work with. It's just like modeling with clay, drawing and painting, it's just like sculpting. And so, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have some problems when you look back at it, but you don't solve the problems straight off the bat. You have to have something on the paper before you can make changes. I already don't like the shape of the eyes. Now, we always draw ourselves. So I have big eyes, so I always give everybody large eyes. I just don't like that eye. Also, when you're making art, you may not even know why you don't like something, but you know you don't like it. So I could let it bother me, or I could do it differently. And the changes I'm making are subtle. They're not huge changes. Some people might not even see the change, but it's just subtle. And I still may make changes. Now I'm doing contour drawing. I'm imagining that I'm touching her face. Okay, you know what? I am, speaking of portraits, even though I made a living doing portraits, I didn't want to do portraits. I had to do portraits for survival. So I don't consider myself a portrait artist. I'm a figure painter. So I paint figures and I put them in different settings and scenarios. But I have friends who are bona fide portrait artists. Now, I really don't like doing smiles. But if somebody, when I was doing portraits for a living, people would come up, and of course most of the pictures had smiles on them. They gave me a photograph. I had to do that smile. And I would say, you don't use heavy lines. Make the lines for the teeth, make them subtle. There's something about pencil lines or chalk lines, or there's something about teeth. For me, it's difficult to draw a smile and not make it too overpowering. Now, some people may not have a problem with it, but I know my limitations. So I say, just try to be subtle to smile with the teeth. Other people, now we all have our different way of doing things, by the way. So some artists may not be so subtle with the teeth. That's how they express themselves. But it is easier if you are subtle with the teeth. You don't have to go back and do so much fixing up. changing. Okay. Knowing what that chin is very important. I just remembered when I was first learning how to do portraits as a teenager. One of the things I learned was the chin area and the neck area is very important. How you, what you do with that area is very important as to how the picture, how realistic the picture is going to end up looking. So I just want to throw that at you. Run that by you. See, as long as I'm sketching lightly, I can make changes. I'm not just trying to copy this photograph, by the way. You know, you try not, you have to watch, look at the photograph. Don't fixate on it though, because I'm using lines, I'm not using a camera. So I'm going to have to do some things too, a little bit different to try to make this work. And the whole thing is, the whole idea is, do what it takes to make it work. So my solution to the problem may be different than yours. So drawing is problem solving. It's sort of like math, although you're using right brain thinking instead of left brain thinking. I keep changing this side of her face, the left side of her face. Most photographs that regular people take are a little bit more simple than the professional photographers, and I think easier to draw. So if you're going to, say, do a portrait of your friend or something, and I suggest you take the photograph if at all possible. And don't major on the minor things. I just sketched in her earrings. This is minor. So I'm not trying to be a camera. I'm trying to be an artist. It's very important, because if I can express myself honestly with this portrait, it's going to look okay. It may even look like her. Some people think that artists, oh, they just draw, it's easier for you. No, it's not easy for artists either. We have to have the patience to stick with it. And what I tell kids, don't give up. The only way you can learn is to go through it. I'm going to take a measurement of the height of this eye again. That's something that you can do when working on this scale. And with pencil. You don't always have that luxury. So as my eye moves across this picture, I'm moving my pencil. Now, some people, they love portraiture so much. This is it for them. This is, I like drawing figures to tell a story that I want my painting to tell. But some people like drawing particular people that they love portraiture, and they would really love this. And it would they would take all the time that they need. You want the hair to not look like it's a helmet or a hat. You notice I keep redrawing some parts of this face. I'm always open to change my mind. Now, I don't care much about her necklace. If I was doing this portrait as a commission, I would put, I wouldn't do a lot of detail on the necklace, but I would make sure that the whatever detail I had, that it was done well. You wouldn't need a lot of detail to impress. So now I'm beginning to erase sketch lines that I no longer need. portraiture, you want to show some shoulders, but you can sort of decide how much. Now, I think I'm going to work on the eyes. I'm going to get my 4B pencil, start putting in some details. I may go to a 6B. So this is a soft lead pencil. I don't want you to draw as fast as I'm drawing. I want you to take your time. And still, even though you're using a heavier lead pencil, always leave yourself room to change your mind. I can change my mind at any time. I was telling a student last Saturday that there's been times when I've worked on a painting and I've done like awesome drawing for the painting, but I mean almost like a masterpiece in my mind, awesome drawing I put on the canvas, but maybe I didn't leave enough room for the entire figure, part of the figure that I wanted to show. So I couldn't tell the story I wanted to tell. So I would have to start over. I may have worked on that drawing for all day long on that canvas. But when I stood back to look at it, the drawing was okay, but it wasn't what I wanted. And I told her that that's the difference in an artist and just anybody. You have to be willing to say, no, I don't like that. And it's all up to you. Are you satisfied, really? And if you see something that you don't like with your art, you have to change it. Now, what I just did is I had to sit back because I was concentrating too hard. I don't usually draw on drafting tables. I've started doing that for these broadcasts. I usually draw on an easel, which is upright. So I found myself hunching over this table. Now, growing up, I didn't have an easel, so I had no choice. I drew on the floor. So I was always hunched over. So the shape of this eyelid is very important in describing this lady. Her friends and family, they would know her by little subtle things like that. I have a certain way that I do eyelashes, and I'm not going to change now. One of the hardest things to learn for art students is to learn how to be expressive and not to be held captive by a photograph, especially if you didn't take the photograph. Because people aren't going to see the photograph, they're going to see your work. So you want to do what's necessary to make your work stand out. I'm going as dark as I can with this 4B pencil without pressing down, putting a lot of pressure on the pencil. You don't want to put pressure on the paper, too much pressure, just enough pressure. You want just enough. See, I made some marks here that I shouldn't have made. I don't even know how I made those marks there. Anyway, I'm going to get rid of them. I do stuff like that. I don't know. I guess I'm used to talking while I'm drawing, but usually I'm drawing with a different medium when I'm talking, maybe pastels, which is more forgiving than pencil. I kind of like what the nose is, so I'm going to leave it there. So now what I'm doing, I'm beginning to shade a little bit. And just let your instincts tell you what to do next. Using the point of my pencil. But this paper has a sheen on it, so I have to be very careful. Things go dark really fast. This is a 4B pencil as well. I want to show the roundness of her top lip. So I'm not just making marks, I'm thinking about the surface. So for me, I'm not just looking at a photograph, but it would be, I have to imagine, what if the person was here? What are these volumes that I'm seeing? And the reason why I'm using a 4B pencil is because it's going to be faster, help me complete this faster for this class. I'm going dark fast. You don't necessarily want to go dark this fast. So her nose here, there's not a lot of light hitting this area, so I'm going to shade it. Shade her beneath her nose as well. So red turns to gray, darker gray, in black and white. So the red of her lips are going to be kind of gray, a dark gray. Point of my pencil, barely touching the paper. And I'm still open to making changes. So we've been doing research of James A. Henry. He's a former principal and the first African American principal in Chattanooga. I think he was the first African American principal in Tennessee as well. So Splash is located at James A. Henry School, 1200 Grove Street, Chattanooga, and Tennessee. And so we're doing some research to try to bring some attention to how important this building is and how important the man James A. Henry is. Of course, some of you know I want to turn the school into an art school, a free art school for kids. I was telling somebody yesterday, all kids benefit from art. I'm telling people that all the time, everybody, all kids. Because what art does is it encourages right brain thinking, which also encourages brain growth. Research shows that whenever you learn something new, you get smarter. Not only do you get smarter, but it helps guard against diseases like Alzheimer's. So art is good to help protect against dementia, and it's good for Alzheimer's patients as well. Art encourages creativity, and in this new age that we're living in, storytelling and creativity is the key to success in business or any endeavor. So we want to expose especially kids who would not normally be exposed to art and to quality training. And that's what Splash has been doing for a decade now. We are dedicated to these children because I was one of those children. I'm doing cross-hatching now, and I'm making changes in the hairline as I'm doing this. So you can go and find out more about Splash at splashyouthArtsWorkshop.org. That's Splash. That's splashyouthArtsWorkshop.org. That's our website. Our email is info@splashyouthArtsWorkshop.org. If you if you love art, you believe in sharing art with our children. The majority who would not be able to afford art classes, especially from a professional artist. We have several teaching artists with Splash. Professional artists, they are all professional. And Splash has an entrepreneurship piece as well. So I've been doing portraiture because our kids are doing portraits of former students at James A. Henry School. And author, writer, Miss Rita Hubbard is compiling stories from former students as well. I'm just going to use some curly lines for her hair this time. You know, you can't see a lot of curls and curly lines. I know her hair is curly. And the kids working on these portraits range from age 8 to 14. And everything is free. All the materials that they're going to be painting these portraits on canvas in acrylics, we believe that you have to use, and any artist know this, the quality of your materials make a difference. So we want the kids to learn using quality art supplies. We're not teaching arts and crafts, we're teaching fine art, painting and drawing. And in the summer we may include some dance or movement just to help the kids get in touch with their physicality, which we use that in teaching our kids how to draw and paint as well. Posture is very important. Also, your mental attitude is very important, so that you don't give up, so that you hang with it, so that, you know, sometimes kids want to quit before they even get started. They don't believe that they can do something. Our mantra is, your gift will make room for you. And that is a true saying. So you see how I'm bringing this up slowly? I'm using the side of my pencil now. Trying to be very loose, very free. I'm letting the picture tell me what to do next. So once the kids paint their portraits, Splash will purchase the portraits and hang them in the building. And everything is at no cost to the kids, but we want parents and children in our city to know that our kids' talent is valuable. And these kids are going to know that if nobody else thinks that their talent is valuable, I do. We do here at Splash. All the teachers are invested in these kids. We also have volunteers that come to class, and we know that there are many good programs, but art is one of those programs that can make a difference in a child's life. Every child's life. Every child needs access to the arts. Not that they're going to be artists. They don't have to be artists when they grow up to benefit from this type of focus and concentration. Okay, I think I made this eye on this side too big. The more you look, the more you see. So I'm just gonna make that eye a little smaller right now. It's important to be able to critique your own work. I am not perfect. I am not a camera, nor do I want to be. A camera. But I enjoy drawing and painting, and so that's why I keep working on it. So I think what I'm going to do now I'm going to finish it off really quickly because I don't want to go over. With my 6B pencil, I'm going to go back and make some areas dark. Time flies. I didn't know we was running out of time. Or I wouldn't have been talking so much. I think you get the idea. The next time I may go back in and do some more shading on this, or I may do a whole nother subject. But I think you got the idea. What do you think, Iantha? So I'm gonna just darken this side of her face. To show her locks. And you can't, when you start shading, like an African American person, you can't rush it. You shouldn't rush it because it's easier to go too dark too soon. So what I would do is start up here at the top and start going down and get a lighter pencil like a and then I would just go over the whole thing. Try to do this real fast. And realizing that you're using lines and a pencil, and like I say, don't rush it. Put your name on it. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Well, this has been fun. So that was a quick and dirty way of approaching a portrait. I just wanted you to see how you line things up more than anything else. And if you could line things up pretty close, it's going to look like that person. So this has been Charlie Newton with Splash. Until next time, remember, art is for everyone. Bye-bye.